The program you're about to see will be sealed into a time capsule immediately following this broadcast. If we can hold them off that long.
1, 2.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Hans Conley. I suppose you know yours. I'm your host for another half hour of Fractured Flickers, the program that takes dull, feature-length old movies and hacks them to pieces before your very eyes. Sounds just like the Late Late Show, doesn't it? There is one important difference between us, however. Our pictures look silly on purpose.
Believe it or don't. Supernatural stories of unexplainable events. Tonight, you will see these cases. The man who hates elevators. Curly Wolf, the man who refused to stay bald. E. Eddie Edwards, the rainmaker. And the remarkable feat of a man who knew his bunion. First, the man who hates elevators. This man is a moneylender. Hating elevators, this is how he reaches his office. And each night, this is how he leaves. He does this all week long, lending vast sums of money. However, by the end of the week, he does not lend money because by Friday, believe it or don't, he finds himself a little short. The remarkable feat of the man who knew his bunions. This man is one of the world's most famous bell clapper cleaners. Or at least he was until that fateful day when he mistook a bottle of nitroglycerin for bell clapper cleaner. This, needless to say, put him in the hospital for 7 weeks. Upon his release, he was unable to obtain employment as a bell clapper cleaner. For under doctor's orders, he was to wear a lifetime finger cast. What did he do to remedy his unemployment problem? Why, he turned to his feet and became a professional pickpocket. Believe it or don't. Now, the man who refused to go bald. This is a recent picture of Curly Wolf. 20 years ago, a jealous nephew stole his hair. Suddenly, a tornado struck the town. The hair was torn from the hands of the jealous nephew and swept into the sky, where it disappeared from sight. 20 years later, or perhaps a couple of decades, Curly Wolf was attempting to regain his former curly locks. Suddenly, that same tornado swept through town again. Believe it or don't, Curly Wolf's hair floated in through the window and came to rest on top of old Curly, much to the amazement of his jealous nephew. But if you think that's strange, you should see what happened to Curly's dog. Next, E. Eddie Edwards. This is the world's greatest rainmaker, E. Eddie Edwards. He was at the circus when his bunion began to hurt. This was a sure sign of rain. 6 months later, during a drought, E. Eddie Edwards and his bunion were responsible for another uncontrollable deluge. He toured the dry states, bringing with him 90% chance of rain to such places as Chicago and Illinois. He did this until he was 38, the retirement age for rainmakers. He then retired to a chicken ranch, which he converted into a water farm, selling water by the bucket. But one day, when he went to the well to fill an order, instead of bringing up water, he brought up the farmer's daughter. He acted surprised, but the farmer shot him anyway. Today, he is a professional lawn sprinkler. Believe it or don't.
Now, why don't you watch our next fractured flicker while I see about tonight's guest star? He keeps trying to get away.
This is the tale of a lumberjack, stalwart, fearless, true, the legend of a man of steel, dangerous Ben Mcgrew.
Oh, dear.
The stories they tell of his power, the trees that he could hew. By far the best in the great Northwest was dangerous Ben Mcgrew. He could fell a mighty sequoia or a redwood with a blow.
Timber!
And the earth and his colleagues trembled as they watched the giants go.
You can go now.
The forest rang with his mighty axe as it struck and struck again. No tree could stand the onslaught of the axe of dangerous Ben. The forest shook as Black Bart roared and summoned Ben Mcgrew. But Ben came forward fearlessly, and excitement began to brew. And now the titans grapple and jockey for position. Two burly brutes of the great outdoors, both in superb condition. The earth heaved up in a cloud of dust with kicks and groans and bashes. And when it was over, Ben Mcgrew had reduced Black Bart to ashes. Yes, well, a bunch of the boys were whooping it up in the Malamute Saloon. And the kid that handled the music box was playing a ragtime tune. But now Black Bart is on his way. He hasn't had enough. He's spoiling for another fight. Oh, boy, this man is tough. Now Bart, while seeking his revenge, saw the lady known as Lou. But everyone in the lumber camp knew Lou loved Ben Mcgrew.
It's you and me, baby.
Now our boy was really riled. As he strode toward evil Bart, the Malamute seemed to hold its breath. The fight was soon to start. For Bart had gone a bit too far with the lady known as Lou, and now he'd have to answer up to dangerous Ben Mcgrew. Bart led first with a mighty left, and followed with a right. Then Bart struck Ben below the belt to end the fearful fight. They buried Ben in the woods he loved, the way he'd want to go, astride a giant sequoia that had felt his mighty blow. And somewhere in the forest, erected by those he knew, stands a life-size plastic statue of dangerous Ben Mcgrew.
I'm sure that you'll be as delighted as I am to know that we have as our in-person guest tonight one of the nation's foremost homemaking authorities, a syndicated columnist with her own television show, Miss Mary Margaret McBride.
Huh?
Yes, Mary?
I'm not Mary Margaret McBride. My name is Barbara Eden.
Barbara Eden, of course. I thought you'd lost a little weight. I'm sorry to mix up, Barbara, as I'm sure that our viewers recognize you from your many television and motion picture appearances. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, this is Miss Barbara Eden, a talented and rising young actress, and I might say a very decorative addition to our little soiree.
Thank you, hon.
There is just one problem, Barbara. All the questions that I have for our interview are supposed to be asked of Mary Margaret McBride.
Oh, well, couldn't we just ad-lib some questions and answers?
Well, we could, but then I'd have all these homemaking questions left over.
Well, why not invite Zsa Zsa Gabor to answer them?
Barbara, please, just do the best you can.
All right, Hans, but I'm not guaranteeing any of my answers.
No, I'm not guaranteeing any of my questions. All right, Miss Eden, our first question. How can I clean my house from top to bottom, prepare a meal for 30 persons, and still greet my guests looking fresh and lovely?
That's easy. Do it on 3 separate days.
It seems so simple somehow. Next, tell me, what do you do with leftovers?
Right now, I'm answering them.
Now, third one. Yes, here. Mrs. M.R. writes, when my husband gets home late from work, he's always grumpy and unpleasant. I can't get a civil word out of him. I'm so miserable. What should I do?
Well, for weather?
Mrs. M.R.
Well, M, honey, I say you ought to make up to look your loveliest, fix your hair in the most flattering way you know, and put on the prettiest and sexiest dress you have, and your most dazzling smile, and go out to some nice party before the bum comes home.
Yes, here's another one. What should a girl do to avoid rough red hair?
Don't go out with farmers.
And here, fortunately, is our final question. Do you have any single piece of advice to offer the younger girls in our audience?
Yes. If you appear on Fractured Flickers, get the script ahead of time.
Sound advice, and thank you, Miss Barbary.
Oh, you're welcome. And good night, Bert Park.
Oh, come on now. This is the spot for one of those devastatingly witty remarks. I certainly wish I could think of one.
I swear, you'd have thought me and Maybelle was the happiest married couple in the entire ever-loving world. And why not? I had my oil wells, Maybelle had the children. And being Texas folks, we had plenty of both. Of course, when this picture was took, the 6 oldest ones was away at school. Then one day, we had a visit from one of them head doctor fellers. He was kind of a circuit-riding psychiatrist named Dr. Ivanich, who just happened to be passing the ranch and dropped in. You know, it's amazing how them psychiatrists can judge the real worth of a fella right off. I judge he's worth about 80 million. Well, that night we had the doc and his sister to supper.
You know, it's surprising, but I have found that all American wives are basically unhappy and discontented.
Well, that's not my little Maybelle, doctor. Hey, honey? Maybelle? Honey?
Why don't you shut your mouth, Horace?
He's always joking.
You're right, Doc. See you later, gents.
Well, Doc?
You know, sweetie, I think your wife has a real problem.
Well, the doc said he'd lend a hand with Maybelle, and next day he sure did.
You entertain the little monster, will you?
Sure thing, Doc.
While I talk to this little frustrated prairie flower. The problem, Mrs. Silverspoon, is that in today's world you can't express the real you. But what are you going to do? I'll tell you what you're going to do. You are going to find a way to release those pent-up drives. You are going to take up expressive dancing.
Well,
Hey, that sounds keen, Doc. So Maybelle started in a dance class run by the doc's brother, Boris Ivanich. Wasn't that a coincidence? Well, sir, I wouldn't have believed that just dancing could release so many pent-up emotions. Only trouble was, they was all Boris's. Only thing Maybelle got was poison oak. So she left the class. Sudden-like.
Mrs. Silverspoon, Boris writes me that being a dancer wasn't the answer. Stop that scratching, dear. Now, I think you ought to try painting instead.
well, if you really think so, Doctor, I'll get started painting right away.
You do that.
I wonder if I should start with the outhouse or the barn.
Well, finally, Maybelle bought a blonde wig and a paint set with all them little numbers on it and started painting. Then she took her painting to the doctor's cousin, Nicky Ivanich, who happened to be an art critic. Wasn't that a coincidence?
Not bad.
It shows a great sense of social protest, especially that brown sky. Now, I'll tell you what. I'll give you $3 cash for your lovely picture of Abe Lincoln chopping wood.
It's supposed to be Whistler's mother. Get out! Get out!
Whistler's mother. I guess it was the beard that fooled me.
Colorblind, eh, Nicky? Too bad. I guess you'll have to write poetry instead. Yeah. Bye. Oh, Mrs. Silverspoon.
So the doc took Maybelle to the Quill Pusher's Coffee House, which was run by his uncle Dimitri. Wasn't that a coincidence?
Here she is, boys. 2 coffees on her. Come along, Mrs. S. Read for these good people. Go on, reveal the real you.
Like this?
No, no, dear lady. I meant read your poetry. You must learn to express your inner feelings freely if you want to be happy. Oh, we are a little shy, are we? Well, let me have the poems, and I, Dr. G. Booby Ivanich, will read your beautiful thoughts. What?
I couldn't think of anything.
Come on. You are going to write a poem.
You want to bet?
Now, what rhymes with June?
Elk?
No! Don't you want to express the real you?
Of course.
Then write.
I can't. I just can't.
Aha! You are held back by frustration and neurosis.
No.
Then why can't you write?
There's no point on this pen.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Doc just couldn't seem to find the answer anyplace. In the end, it was Maybelle herself who said,
Hey, Doc, I've been thinking. I know what I'd really like to do to express the real me.
And what is that?
Steal.
Steal. Well, then, why not go right ahead and steal?
You mean it's all right?
I mean, it's all right with me. Mrs. Silverspoon, you are all pent up. You must find release. If being a klepto expresses the real you, go to it. You could start out robbing piggy banks and work your way up. Mrs. Silverspoon, go out into the world and swipe your little heart out.
It sounds like fun.
Well, sir, you know what that Maybelle woman did? That night, she busted into my private safe and made off with the week's housekeeping money. $283,000. Then she stole my new sports car. Then she and some other fellas went down to my number 3 warehouse and took $87,000 worth of number 1 prime steer hides. Then they jumped the state line in my car. Well, of course, I had to prosecute. Maybelle got 10 to 20 in the state pen. I don't mind a cotton-picking thief, but I can't stand a rustler. After the divorce, I married the doc's sister. She ain't much for looks, but she's steady.
I am dependable as the Rock of Gibraltar.
Come to think of it, hon, you're built the same way. Ain't that coincidence? Now the doc is not only my brother-in-law, but my business manager, too.
As for Maybelle, I guess she is still all pent up inside.
And, Doc, you better check up on my boy here, too.
Why is that?
He seems to think I'm a horse.
Don't worry about it, Booby. He's only half right.
Sluggish. Headachy. That uncomfortable, warm feeling could be due to irregularity.
Why not try Carper's Little Liquor Pills? Just follow the simple directions on the box. Add 1 pill to a 1/5 of water for instant relief.
As I always say, it's like getting a new lease on life.
You may have noticed on our program lately that the editing has been a little ragged. Well, that's because we have a new editor working on the show, the producer's nephew, a none too bright young man. However, lately he seems to be doing a much better job.
And now, another fair, impartial, unbiased, fractured Flicker's political report. Who are the dark horse candidates? Each year, as Americans march to the polls, it becomes more and more important to know the dark horse candidate. And it is important to know what makes that dark horse into a straight party candidate. For as we see well-known political figures striving to get ahead of each other, we know that lightning may strike the dark horse, and that he will run. And run cleanly and quietly. Yes, the times demand acute perception. They demand a man who can respond immediately to the clarion call. A man for whom the big city sophisticate can pour out affection. America truly needs a fighter who is hard-headed, able to hold firm against aggression, able to make a mistake once, perhaps, but never to be stepped on a second time. And it needs a man who can never, never be humbled. It is with these qualities in mind that we now proudly launch our fractured flicker selections for dark horse candidates available for any election anywhere. Number 1, Honest Ralph Sticky Fingers Bluger. Advantages: he is a much better trout fisherman than either Warren G. Harding or Calvin Coolidge, and therefore should be a great president. Disadvantages: he offends the military, as well as the diplomatic corps. Number 2, Swinging Clyde Rumford, dark horse from the West. Many feel that Swinging Clyde is too easily led by others, perhaps too easily trapped. But his advantages include practicing before the Montana State Bar for over 20 years. To his great misfortune, he never got around to practicing law. He did, however, become a skilled juggler. Disadvantages: although he has repeatedly attempted to help the youth of the nation and to work with them closely, he has failed to gain their support. Long known for his political timing, dark horse Roy Schlepp is never caught off guard. Advantage: he is the dirtiest fighter in public life. Disadvantage: the nation has never elected an accordion player. Finally, we present dark horse number 4, What the Heck, Harry Schneet. Candidate Schneet is known as the man who said, "Let's drop the bomb and get it over with. Let's stop fooling around and declare war on everybody. If you don't nominate me, you're chicken." Yes, a greater variety of candidates is running than ever before. We have only shown a few here, but now we are proud to present for the first time ever all of the dark horse candidates for president and vice president together. Can you line them up a little better, please? This is for television. Fine. Now, can you get Governor Scranton to smile?
Before viewing our next offering, we are proud to make the following announcement. Fractured Flickers has been selected for viewing by our armed forces overseas. It was selected by their armed forces overseas.
How to be a finder's keepers. Suppose you're late for work, and you not only miss the train, but the platform as well. Still, it's your lucky day, for you find a watch. You are now a finder. The problem is to become a keeper. First, contact your wife and have her write a note for help. Make sure she gives it to a messenger boy, a fast messenger boy. Have him deliver your cry for help to the nearest police officer. If this fails, try and catch that train you just missed. This is not your day for catching trains, but don't panic, for by now the police are on their way to a riot in a bakery. Dash into the nearest motorcycle shop, steal a motorcycle, and head for the corner of 4th and Elm, which is where you live. Hang around for just a second, then run into your house and hide under a lampshade. If the police are still on their way and you can't wait, take the watch to the railroad terminal and head for Philadelphia, first making certain that you throw your pursuers off the track. If that doesn't work, well, you can worry about that when you get to Philadelphia.
1, 2.
And so it is with saddened hearts and tear-filled eyes that we once more take leave of fractured flickers. But rest assured, I'll be back here again next week, and the week after that, the week after that. Heaven help me, I can't kick the habit. This